What is up, everyone, and welcome to Debate Me Brah, the show where we ask interlocutors to step into the ring and defend their point of view. On tonight's debate, we are asking the question, presuppositional versus empirical. So won't you join the YouTuber Ultimated Judeo-Christian along with Amy Newman and James W.
YouTuber Amy Newman.
Woohoo! That's right. YouTuber Amy Newman and YouTuber James W.
Right.
For some presumable fun. What is up, everyone out there, and welcome to tonight's debate on presuppositional versus empirical. We have the YouTuber Ultimated Judeo-Christian here. I am Amy Newman and James W. here to have fun. However, if you are feeling fancy on the inner tubes, please don't forget to like, follow at twitch.tv/Amy Newman Skeptic, or subscribe and join the Skeptic and Ranting family by hitting that bell icon to all so that you can see our premieres and join our live streams. There are many ways you can support the channel. Sponsored by coffee. Many ways you can support the channel, like becoming a member down there at our channel. You can get a bunch of different not only benefits, but get our evolving badge system, which with just a little bit of time actually evolves. Isn't that crazy? And the best way to support us is by going to our Patreon at patreon.com/Amy Newman. I'm gonna send it in there. Huzzah! And we are sending love to all of you out there. And I'll say hi and I'll say hello, but we want to go through quickly. In fact, I see Pookykins God Equals, The Sinister Porpoise, Brian Stevens, Spooky, Church of Robot, Sven, Sinister Porpoise, davegar, Zocalox, YouTuber, Ultimated, James, myself, we're all in there. Go hang out and chat. Spooky, but also our supporters. We want to give you the shout outs. Keep on coming on, like Dale Pastel, who reminds us we're looking for a little bit of empirical evidence. Chris Disciple reminding us that Christians are part of the skeptic and ranting community. Theists alongside the atheist agnostic brothers and sisters. James Wolfe reminding us that we do late night podcasts. Sending so much love, James Wolfe. And
James.
I also see him all over the interwebs, as well as Rachel Holen, sending so much love. Rachel Holen, the one and only, reminding us all about how the only type of actual good slavery is in the BDSM sense, where you're probably tying femboys. Davegar reminding us the world is round and old. Senator Cato reminding us separation of church and state. Emily reminding us that the LGBT community is awesome and it triggers fundamentalists. And then our top tier list. Thank you so much to the Captain Deck, to Matt D reminding us we're just looking for theories. If you say it's just a theory, then you should probably just take a science class. Regos reminding us we have a skeptic Bible study. We're just going through the chapters one by one. And Ian Davenport reminding us that we're looking for better apologetic arguments. That's really what it is. And so sending love to all of our supporters. You are what make this channel possible, these debates possible. This is our quick version because we want to respect our interlocutors' time. Normally, it's like 50 minutes of James and I just, bullshitting, ranting. That's a good. But with that, thank you to all of our supporters. Thank you to everyone. We are going to have opening statements. Then we're going to have free-form discussion, and then we will have a Q&A session. Super chats, they will send your chat question to the top of the list. They help support the show, though we are just collecting questions. You do have to tag either Amy Newman or James W. He's going to be looking out in there for you. And so with that, we are going to hand it over to Ultimated as we talk about presuppositional versus empirical. We are going to switch it into the opening statements. The floor is about to be yours. Woohoo! With that, welcome Ultimated to presuppositional versus empirical. We are starting off the opening statements, and the floor is all yours.
Yes, thanks again, panelists, for organizing this debate. My introduction would be very brief. So I'm here to meta onto epistemically, syllogistically prove onto ethico-epistemological Judeo-Christianity, two premises and a conclusion, which can be found within the About page of my YouTube channel. Pre-biblical premise 1, non-finiteness, meta onto ethico-epistazing non-ultimateness entails onto-ethical epistemologism. Premise 2, premise 1 adduces biblicalism, Genesis 1:1 to Revelation 22:21. Conclusion, thus, P1 indirectly and P2 directly entail onto-ethico-epistemological Judeo-Christianity. If my interlocutor asserts that's begging the question, that's fallacious, because, again, P1 is indirectly within the conclusion. So that's my introduction. Thanks again.
Woohoo! Thank you so very much, Ultimated. I know, and all right. Do. I'm looking forward to the discussion. Presuppositionalism versus empirical. Or as we could frame it, pre-assuming versus testing. Since presuppositionalism is a type of fundamentalism, Christian apologetics, that asserts that God is true, necessary, and grounds everything, even logic. Because we, in fact, need this deity in order to reason at all. How else could we order something at Wendy's? If not for Jesus. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just presuppose everything that we believed in to be true? Just keep asserting people have to accept our premises, no matter how silly they are. Though I'm not sure if that makes someone a philosopher or a bully. It's not how the world works, but it is how this line of thinking works, which ultimately leads to us having to accept Jesus as our Lord and Savior. Because a first century rabbi decomposing for 72 hours, then coming back from the dead, is A-OK. Not even if we had ancient Tupperware. Though presups never want to defend. Zombie man. Look over there. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's something rotting that conveniently went disappearing into heaven right after they came back. Though, if you could even get questions from a presuppositionalist, consider yourself lucky. That's the difference between fundamentalists who defend the crazy claims in said book and presuppers who just assert you have to agree with them. I'm not sure which is worse, but at least the former defends the kooky claims instead of just presupposing the specific God is right. Well, okay, they do that too, but they offer evidence for their presupposed claims. A presup will love asking questions, but if we can get them to defend their worldview, it will be, what do they call it? A miracle. Instead, we often go through paragraphs of either word games or word salads. What even is your ultimate foundation? Taco Tuesday. And I often say that creationists have one goal and scientists have another. Creationists want to sound technical. And after all, they often don't have degrees in the fields they speak of. But scientists and the people who support science want to keep things simple because many scientific subjects are taught in primary school. Speaking of which, and in the contrast, when it comes to the empirical, we're able to create hypotheses using the information we have, go out into the field searching for new data, then do tests so that we can turn that data into valuable new information. The value of the scientific method is that we're able to make predictions, not just postdictions, as in going into our holy text and trying to make the story fit a discovery of someone else, but predictions, like trying to predict a meteor shower, which then comes true in the future. Lastly, I know that my presup interlocutor thinks highly of the word the. That's right. We're not talking about a God. We're talking about the God. And even the word the presumes they even exist. Only it doesn't. The word the, if this isn't a case about going down on a secretary's skirt, Your Honor, who really knows what the word this means? Or the? Or really what is language? Yeah, pass the ganja. This stuff is amazing. Anyway, the word the is a definite article or a determiner. They are the noun's best friend, often going before a noun as if to hold the door open for them. How sweet. Just like the word that, the makes up a decent portion of print literature, or around 7 to 8%, which, if you think about it, is huge. Having come from Old and Middle English, losing the gender that sometimes comes with, and being the lovely word it is today. But it's not evidence of God. So when it comes to presuppositional versus empirical, why not try the empirical method? We may make an educated guess with all the information we have. We formulate that test to see if we can create a model. Then we go out into the field to put that model to the test. Once we collect our data, we publish our results so the rest of the world can see. And just as important, other scientists can verify our results using the same methodology we use. This is the process that got us planes, trains, and automobiles. took us to the moon and creates the medicine we use every day. Its success, both small and large, is what makes our society possible today in the modern world. Meanwhile, religion, at least in the fundamentalist form and the apologetics that go with, the presuppositional apologetics that go with, has not produced anything useful in thousands of years. I think I'll stick with the one that actually works. Thank you. Woo! And that's right. I apparently. And I had a way longer one. I thought you were going to go on for way longer, Ultimated. But all right, with that, we are going to kick it off into the open discussion. We're talking presuppositional versus empirical. James is going to hold us back. It's going to get spicy. But
I actually thought this was between James and I. I'm happy to debate you, Amy. I assumed this was between James and I I messaged.
You messaged me about the debate, but I didn't think it mattered.
I mean, I'm sure James would love to debate you. I was under the impression that James thought that I would, because I would have hosted James in a heartbeat. Because it's all content to me, and James and I have very similar views on the vast majority of subjects. But
what do you want to respond to that, Ultimated? I mean, I can chime in a little bit here, but I know Amy was the one who prepared for everything.
No, we could just we can do this and see what happens later on.
Oh, you never know what can happen. Amy, what happens? You know,
he's got to experiment sometimes, right? I do sometimes.
I'm on no strict time limit.
That's okay. How much time do you have?
How much time do you have?
Oh, like maybe 9 hours.
Hold on.
Okay.
James, I'm talking with the producer backstage. I'm trying to see. Gizmo actually said we might be able to we might be able to get that to work.
I think we can squeeze that in. I'll probably be at work at 9 hours.
Okay, so this is open discussion, correct?
Yes, this is.
Go for it.
Let's
well, can you see the private message I sent you in the StreamYard? We can just start from
that might have been before me, but I've been looking at your YouTube page. Is it pre-biblically non-fitness meta onto ethico-epistemizing non-ultimus entails onto ethico-epistemologism?
Yes, somewhat. I know what you mean.
We're not big brain enough for sentences like that. We just can't. We can't swing with that.
I actually think that it is a form of political correctness, and I think that it hides. You want to be simple, and you want to be able to convey to an audience, and all of the technical jargon, in my opinion, that's like a coat of armor when you don't really want to defend it. Because we could go over each one of these words, but if you have to have a dictionary conversation with everyone that you come across just to explain your argument, that means it's probably not a good argument.
That's a claim. So we'll just start from non-finiteness. So what is your definition of non-finiteness?
Non-finiteness. Well, we are finite. And so there could be something that is infinite. We can imagine infinites in mathematics, which is a language. It is extremely hard for our brains to conceptualize infinity, like falling into a black hole. What do
made
you
a claim.
conceptualize as non-infinite?
That would be
pencil.
finiteness. You didn't make a claim. It's not a matter of could infinite or infinitude be the opposite of non-finiteness, to paraphrase.
Just to be clear, my specific claim is you're hiding in these jargon-filled worms because you don't want to defend your actual God and your actual, like, the miracle claims and all that because it sounds silly. That is my claim. I admit that is my claim.
That's a fallacious claim.
So
that's another fallacious claim. So
no,
the
I really
opposite.
don't think so.
That's another fallacious claim. So the opposite to non-finiteness would be ultimacy, and to be ultimacy requires a mind because free will is not subject to parts, entailing absoluteness, further entailing eternalness, which requires all-powerfulness, not subjected to death. So an all-powerful, absolute, eternal mind is who we call God. Agreed?
I believe that is who you call God, yes. That's who you...
Made another...
Because there's many gods. I just think that you create... Like, your God is a super person that you have anthropomorphized, but they create universes. Like, they're an anthro-you, but they have the property of, like, you know, these omnis and all that fun stuff. I want to create the creator of the universe.
There's two fallacious claims I want to address here by you. You stated, I believe. That's a contradiction because you're putting forward the
You're going to say, I know, right?
Yes, but your faith in God may be lower than mine. So I can articulate
It's
God's
not. We have
attribute.
equal claims. I know that God is not real, and you know that God is real. So we need to figure out which one's true.
That's another fallacious claim because you're putting forward the pronoun I as a matter of fact, which presupposes...
Please do not say that I presupposes God. The word I, just like the word the and all of these, they do not presuppose the word or the concept of God. They just don't. Like, that's a fallacious claim to use your language. Because it's not, I haven't been using fallacious claims, but that's okay.
There's a lot of fallaciousness out of you. Again, the pronoun I references God as he is the opposite to our finiteness.
The word I is trying to be a representation. So when I say I need to go get my car an oil change, I'm trying to point at myself. Do you notice that in that sentence, God had nothing to do with it, and yet I used the word I? Completely detached from it. Nothing.
You can't escape the dichotomy. It's God or not God. Non-finiteness.
God. God does not exist.
That's a fallacious claim because you reference God. So when you say God doesn't exist, what you are tautologically saying is that God doesn't do things. However, God does do things definitionally. If you make that claim again...
That is what I'm saying. God cannot do anything. They only exist in our mind, and so they physically cannot do anything. You would have to demonstrate a God doing anything ever.
There's a lot of claims here, fallaciously.
What's something God has done? Name me something God's done.
He has meta onto ethico epistemologically revealed himself, backing my pre-biblical premise 1. So you asserted from memory multiple gods. You're saying God doesn't exist. Again, to paraphrase, you're referencing God when you say that. There can only be one God definitionally.
Like Highlander?
And to further add...
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
to further, when you say God doesn't exist, if you phrase that
Mhm.
differently, what you are tautologically saying as well is that you must have seen God in all of his glory to
Let me
where he's
rephrase it.
self-destructed.
God only exists in your mind. You have created them, and when you die, that God will no longer exist. The God will no longer exist, to put it in your words.
That's fallacious because God is not just conceptual. God is
No, it
concrete.
is.
That's
God
a
is only
fallacious
conceptual.
claim.
Okay, name something concrete that God does.
God has revealed himself, his invisible attributes. He grounds facts. Dichotomous / that's fallacious because the pronoun I reference my pre-biblical premise 1.
But
It's called
I
circuit.
doesn't need a God. In fact, most things that we do with that letter have absolutely nothing to do with the deity. And so you're just deciding that I equals a God fallaciously.
There's a lot of fallaciousness out of you.
Arbitrarily.
There's a lot of fallacious. I've got a notepad here, so if you think you could gish gallop me with fallaciousness,
as a spoon falls. But me too.
Stop gish galloping, Amy.
I know. I mean,
for you to know you are finite, you have to simultaneously know your opposite. God is the opposite to us. It's a dichotomy, a closed dichotomy.
God's a lot like us. It just has superpowers. Especially your God. He cares about who people have sex with and stuff. It's ridiculous. That is a very human God.
God does have a human aspect. So if you want to talk about the Bible, you have to agree to my pre-biblical premise 1.
I will agree that the Bible is not an accurate representation of history, and the vast majority of it did not take place, especially in the Old Testament. The vast majority of it did not take place. Most of the prophets didn't even exist. Adam and Eve, Noah, Moses, these are not real people. These are people that were just created around a campfire. Drunk Jews. Woo!
That's a fallacious claim. So do you agree?
Oral tradition.
For the sake of this,
okay.
For the sake of this debate, do you agree to my pre-biblical premise 1?
No.
Well, then
I do not understand. It's the same when I come across things with Kalam, and they're like, "Well, just agree with," but I don't think the things begin to exist in the same way that you're explaining it, and it's the same way with your meta-ontological claim, which you use almost twice in one sentence, which is weird at one point.
That's fallacious, and you're possibly setting up a strawman argument with the Kalam. I'm not referencing the Kalam cosmological argument.
No, I understand. But people who often give these arguments, what they will say is, can't you just accept my premise? Just accept my premises. And then the conclusion follows if I accept your premises. Well, I mean, probably this is like looking at a jigsaw puzzle. But let's assume for sake of argument there that it would follow. But a lot of your premise is to be nice. I'm trying to think of the nice way. There is no nice way. A lot of it is word salad. I understand we could go into what things like eulogizing and the meta-onto-ethico-epistemicism, but that just sounds like you're trying to avoid. Is this what convinced you that Christianity was true?
Not necessarily. I'm merely putting in writing what we know already. Some of us, I've
Like how
won
you
by
added that some
default.
of us.
That some of us is in reference to my premise 2. So not everybody would have a direct connection with Judeo-Christianity because they may not understand the Bible. However, in regards to my pre-biblical premise 1, I've won by default. So I've justified non-finiteness with ontotheology and a closed dichotomy. The opposite to us of finite beings is God. There's no third option.
The opposite, a true dichotomy, would be finite and not finite. However, these beings, these gods, they have a lot of similarities to humans. They apparently want to enact laws. Would you agree with that?
What was your question?
These gods seem not so different from us. They care a lot about whether we boil something in its mother's milk. They care if we mix fabrics or if we really like butt sex. Like, these are things that this god cares about, actually has positions on. And so, like, you could say it's this infinite being, but it's this infinite being that wants you to pray on Sunday.
To me, was that a question? Was that further?
Yes, because
adding
it's
to your question?
why does this being that you claim is so different, why does it have such human values and traditions?
Well, that's a loaded question and an informal fallacy, as if you want to debate which God exists, you have to agree a God exists, and I'm not claiming God into existence.
I would say you're defining God into existence. You're saying God, we have to presuppose that God is the foundation for reality, and then we can begin.
That's a fallacious claim, as we are in God's reality. The proper noun God.
But I do not believe we're in God's reality. I think that God only exists in your mind. And I do not believe that it exists anywhere else but in possibly other minds. How can you show me that I'm wrong? Or vice versa?
Yes, I've already addressed this, as God definitionally is concrete, not just conceptually in our minds.
I disagree. How can you prove me wrong? Or show me otherwise? Give me evidence, because you don't have to prove the negative. Do you have good evidence that this God exists outside of your mind?
By definition. So metaphysical presuppositionalism preconditions empiricism. So for us to know we are finite and we have finite senses, we have to metaphysically presuppose the revelation of God, aka ultimate truth. And I've justified why only a mind can be ultimate, because of the nature of free will being singular, not contingent on parts.
I do not believe in free will, but that would be another subject. I also think your God violates free will depending on the story. So I don't think it's a defensible concept. We could go into Noah and just how, we have free will when God wants us to have free will.
There's a lot of fallaciousness out of you. Free will is one of the key aspects to this whole syllogism, because God,
There's your problem.
because God has to have free will to be ultimate. That's just who he is. That's why we are to bow to him and love him with all that we have. So God is eternal, entailing omnipotence, further entailing omniscience. It's a true closed dichotomy. God or not God. Not God would be temporalities. The opposite to a temporality would be mindful ultimacy, backing the word non-finiteness. Agreed?
I see no reason why that mind exists or why we need a infinite mind. We don't have natural laws that get affected by minds. Generally speaking, when we look at natural laws of physics, it has never in the history ever been an agent who is granting these laws. Each time we would guess, like, is it Thor? Do we have to pray for rain? Now we're at the point where it's like this agent creates universes. It wasn't the thunder and the whole praying for rain thing, but we definitely have it now with the whole creating universes thing. I'm sorry, but these are anthropomorphized versions of us. Jesus is not coming back, and it would be better to defend why you actually believe instead of what I would say are these just extremely jargon-laden sentences that make it difficult to communicate.
You're philosophically gish galloping here, as I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points.
I'm trying to address the points that you also bring up. So I love that you think I'm gish galloping, but I would say I'm having a conversation and trying to explain why I don't think a God is real. Also, I think I have to switch headphones from wireless. I'm just going to switch here. Don't mind me. But you keep talking. I'm just...
Okay. You keep reasserting that, to paraphrase, what I'm saying is word salad. That's not the case. The pronoun I, once again, references non-finiteness.
No, it doesn't.
You
use I for everyday language. There is nothing supernatural. There is nothing about finite or infinite. You are trying to explain yourself. Me, myself, and I. Do you understand what that means?
What's your question, as you're possibly running metaphysically from your claims?
As in, why are you trying to tie the word I to God? It has literally no attachment, no correlation. Why do you think that I and God have any type of overlap?
I've just typed out your question, so I'll answer it after I address your fallaciousness first. So the second point here, a finite thing can't be standalone. It has to be in causal relations to ultimacy. The third point here, you reference natural laws.
Black holes are infinite. They have stuff rolling around in it, but continue.
Your response of natural laws would be prescribed invisible laws from God. Jesus is returning. So you're shifting to my premise 2 with your fallaciousness there.
Any day now, right?
It can happen any time, yes.
Do you know what year maybe? Do you have like a estimation?
If I had to say, in under 3 years.
Really? So you think in your lifetime Jesus is going to come back?
He is God's best friend.
Yes.
So. Do you think that everyone for the past 2,000 years that was a Christian has probably thought that, or the vast majority?
Your question is an informal fallacy, as you're possibly shifting from my pre-biblical premise 1 to my premise 2.
I'm just trying to show that it's kind of silly to think that Jesus is going to come back when the track record, like he said he was going for cigarettes like 2,000 years ago at a certain point.
If you want to talk about the Bible / Jesus, you have to agree to my pre-biblical premise 1.
Jesus. Why do you do that?
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of HTML and nesting folders. Is that what you mean when you mean /?
Hang on, what's your question? As you're possibly metaphysically
What do you mean when you mean like /? Because I'm right now I'm not only making a website, but I'm teaching web design, and all I can think about is when you do that, it's like you're doing like, you know, desktop website page 1 blah 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 blah. That's what a /. That is the only valid language I know where you're using a /. I'm trying to understand what you're saying, I guess. What do you
There's
get?
a
out of
loaded
that?
There's
Sorry,
3 questions and a point here. So one of the questions you've asked is loaded. You ask, why do I believe in this? To paraphrase, that's a loaded question because I know Judeo-Christianity.
Is knowledge a subset of belief?
It depends, as faith and belief.
If you have knowledge of
And
something, do you also believe something?
And there's another question. What's your
Because
question?
it's the same thing. You are trying to point out a semantic difference that I am actually correct in. As in, you're like, I don't just believe it, I know it. All right, that's fine, but you still believe it.
I know
you think
Judeo-Christianity.
you know it. But I know that a God doesn't exist, and you know a God does exist. So we're trying to figure out how we can mesh that out, figure out which one of us is right, if any of us.
Your response is fallacious, as you have to fallaciously defeat the dichotomy of God or not God. God preconditions temporalities by definition. If you fallaciously reject that dichotomy, you have to fallaciously present a third option. And I've already gone through this. The other fallacious options would be naturalism of default nothingness and an infinite regression.
It's
So
most
that
likely naturalism, and I don't believe in a nothingness until it's been proven to exist. I find that the nothingness often comes from theists.
I don't put forward default nothingness. God is eternal. So we can brush that aside. So if you, for the sake of this debate, agree that default nothingness is illogical, you have to fallaciously assert an infinite regression, which is fallacious because
whoever was sneezing.
it's a trichotomy: eternalness, infinite regression, or default nothingness. We've crossed out default nothingness. So for the sake of this debate, you have to defend.
I'm also not claiming I don't know. I have not seen evidence of a nothing. And so when theists claim that atheists believe we come from nothing, I have not seen that in any atheist circles except for the one single book, A Universe from Nothing, in which Lawrence Krauss was like, you know what, you guys say this so much, we might as well explore that concept. But besides that one book, atheists don't use it. And that book was supposed to be tongue-in-cheek, except for finding out how much we actually could go down, how much we could take away until we get down to as much nothing as we could get. But that doesn't mean that atheists think that we come from nothing.
I'll just disprove default nothingness. So firstly, the precondition for intelligibility is absoluteness. So it is impossible
That's not true.
It is true.
Intelligibility? No. The presuppositional for intelligibility is our brain. For what makes things intelligible? Right there. Noggin.
I've already stated this. A finite thing can't be standalone. It has to be in causal relations to ultimacy, entailing absoluteness. So it is impossible for something absolute to come out of nothing causelessly because of the brute contingency of instant creation. So when something
So let's just say he didn't come out of nothing. He doesn't exist.
That doesn't make sense. When you say God doesn't exist, it doesn't make sense. It's a contradictory phrase.
Doesn't make sense to me when you say God does exist.
It does. I've already stated, I'll add to this. When you say God doesn't exist, that can tautologically imply that you have seen God to where he no longer exists. But
no,
God
it means
is not
I
suicidal.
know that you are making an anthropomorphic version of yourself. Just like how you know that the people who worship Thor and that Thor isn't a real god, I have as much knowledge that Yahweh is not our God as Thor is not a real god. You just went from from Thunder creator to universe creator. It doesn't solve anything. It's just like a super us, and he's like your daddy.
Your response is an informal fallacy, as you're possibly shifting again to my premise 2 without properly concluding my pre-biblical premise 1. So
pre-biblical.
So for verbal confirmation, can you say God exists?
For verbal confirmation, I believe God exists in your head, sure.
That's fallacious, as I've stated many times.
It's the only place that I believe God exists. I don't believe God exists anywhere but in your head. It's the only place that I would concede he exists, because I think if humans were to die and there weren't other, like maybe other versions of apes that maybe dolphins or whatever that had proto-religions, like without those if we were just wipe out animals, let me tell you right now, your God be gone. There'd be no more Yahweh. There'd be no more creators, because that's something we do, and you're just anthropomorphizing that.
There's a lot of fallaciousness out of you again. So God is not just a concept in our mind. He is in actuality. A finite thing has to stand in causal relations to mindful ultimacy. You have to agree, for the sake of this debate, that there is an ultimacy that governs all temporalities and only a mind.
I have a bottle of like electrolyte water. It's what plants crave. If I were to just put this down, would God be able to lift it up? So it's now on the table. Would God be able to?
Your question is an informal fallacy, as you're referencing God within your question, even though you're fallaciously arguing against him. So
sure,
you have
because what I'm saying is, because God only exists in your head, they can't actually make the bottle float. That is the claim.
For you to identify that bottle being finite, you have to simultaneously identify mindful ultimacy. That's just the nature of truth. We have to have an ultimate authority to identify finite things.
I feel like that's just something you go in when you're a little bit kinky. We need a ultimate authority. But other than that, I don't see a creator of the universe authority.
That's just a fallacious claim. You can't justify that. It's impossible.
I do not believe that your first claim or your second, either premises, are valid or sound.
That's just a fallacious claim. that you can't justify because it's impossible.
It's impossible. A lot of this is just the non-fitness meta onto ethical. So epistemizing non-ultimus entails onto ethico-epistemologism. Halfway through that, I felt like I was doing a Harry Potter spell, but
we are on the non-finiteness part.
Mhm.
So again, that one word is a way of putting forward the ultimate finite dichotomy / polarity, or the ultimate creator-creation distinction.
I wanted to ask that. So like a polarity means that you have poles. You have these two things. What's the polarity here?
God and not God. Finiteness.
Does God talk to you?
Your question is an informal fallacy, as you are referencing God, even though you are fallaciously arguing against him. So you have to agree to my pre-biblical premise 1 before shifting to my...
I agree that they exist in your head, and so the talking to you would ultimately be you speaking to yourself. But I do want to know if from your worldview you think that God is speaking to you.
Your question is an informal fallacy, as we are not talking about me. We are debating for Judeo-Christianity. So for verbal confirmation, can you say God exists before we shift to premise 2?
I cannot, because I believe that God does not exist.
That's fallacious, because the pronoun I references God's revelation of...
I hate to use the word literally, but it literally has no attachment. And also, I'll go through this for a few more rounds, but in a moment, would you mind going over maybe a syllogism or two that I have?
Okay.
Sounds good. I have like 3 syllogisms that I think get to like the heart of wanting you to defend what you believe. So that is specifically where it's supposed to lead. We'll see if it does.
Again, this is not a matter of belief for me. I know Judeo-Christianity to be true.
And I know it to be false. I know Jesus did not rise from the grave. I know that Jesus did not rise into heaven. I love how convenient that is. It's like he didn't go back to preaching. He just went up to heaven so that no one could see the body. Where's the body? It's in heaven or something. Don't ask about it.
You're setting up a strawman argument because you have to, because you're attacking Jesus in his human form.
Well, and his followers. I would say that means that the followers were either lying or wrong. Yeah, that's true.
If you want to debate the Bible, you have to verbally agree to my pre-biblical premise 1.
I can't, because God doesn't exist. We could go on to premise 2, but I can't grant you premise 1 because would you be able to grant me God doesn't exist for the sake of a 2 premises and a conclusion?
What's your question again?
Would you be able to grant me, if I had an argument and one of the premises was God does not exist, would you be able to then move forward to premise 2?
No, it's not a matter of granting.
There you go. Exactly.
You have to verbally confirm, for the sake of this debate, God exists.
And so would you, at least for the sake of this debate, confirm that God doesn't exist?
No,
just for the sake of this debate.
It's impossible. God.
Come on. We're in a debate. See, this is what I mean, though, Ultimated. I don't know why I would grant you. When I know that God doesn't exist, I don't know why I would grant you that
you're
God
just
does exist.
I've already justified this. Whenever you say God doesn't exist, you are referencing him within premise 1, and
So
then your
if I am saying
conclusion.
the Lion King doesn't exist like in physical form, like talking lions that speak English, doesn't exist anywhere but in the film.
You can make that claim, but in regards to God's attributes, you can't deny him for this debate.
I just did.
You can't justify it. You have yet to fallaciously justify your statement.
I see no evidence beyond what we currently empirically have for minds that animals are the only version that we have. And we have no examples of natural laws being controlled by agents. Like, we're getting close to terraforming, but it's not like we can just magically make the sky rain. It would be a form of technology.
To address your fallacious point here, you said, I see no evidence.
Yes.
The pronoun I is the evidence.
Sure.
Again,
and I would say thus God doesn't exist because okay, so are you saying we can't make a sentence with the word I without talking about God?
Can you repeat your question?
You are saying that I equals evidence for God. So every sentence with the word I, like I want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, that's evidence for God, correct?
Yes.
It's
a closed system.
To once again use your favorite word, that sounds like a fallacious argument. It literally has nothing to do with a God. It's not a conclusion or premises. It's just shoving God in places.
You're just responding with fallaciousness. Again, non-finiteness is a closed system, a dichotomy, a polarity, complementing the laws of logic, A or not A.
Black and
That's
white,
a dichotomy.
Peanut butter and chocolate, the red cherry with the blue raspberry at the Slurpee machine. Though those exist, so I guess I'm getting ahead of myself.
You have yet to fallaciously defeat my argument for why a mind is the precondition for ultimacy because of free will.
I think that a mind is a high-level organ. It is something that comes about through a system of neurons. It can be replicated artificially through something like a neural network. And I have no examples, or at least we're working on that in machine learning. We have no examples. Even a computer has a physical substrate, a fancy word for it has a tangible piece. You have hardware that the software runs software. God has none of that.
That's fallacious. So you have to agree that free will is the... Yes, you have to, with this statement, you have to agree free will is the precondition. You have to agree free will is the precondition for ultimacy.
I don't, though. I think there's will. I think there's a difference between wanting to walk through a door and someone throwing you through a door, and that we are able to make that difference in a physical and a legal manner. I think we're able to understand that in a social context, but it just falls under
the two
word. Yeah, it's the two letter. The two exactly. Because once you start, and not to tangent, but it's not climate change, it's not global warming, James. It's pollution. The audience, it's pollution. We got it down to that one word that doesn't feel like bullshit. But that's a whole nother different subject. But I do think that politically correct statements, and that's what I do believe. I think you are trying to find the perfect smorgasbord, but it's the opposite. You will find more common ground, more people understand you if you break down what your words mean instead of having to break through all of these very difficult syllogisms that I don't end up agreeing with, and I don't think many or any atheist is going to agree with you. So, like, if you're trying to convince people who already agree with you, then sure, it's like trying to talk the Kalam or any cosmological argument with another theist. But as for a skeptic, agnostic, and atheist, you can't just assert it. And again, the thing that drives me cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs is that this is not what you guys really believe in. When at least like a fundamentalist who believes the earth is 6,000 years old, I think that's all not sane, but at least they try and defend it. They will sit there and be like, this passage and it adds up and all that. Exactly. Those same difference at this point. But yes, I think you're just trying to make it sound overly technical when that is the opposite way that you should be going. You should be trying to make it as simple as possible.
There's a lot of claims here, and you have philosophically gish gallop to possibly run from you fallaciously objecting to free will being the necessary precondition to ultimacy. So because you have fallaciously rejected free will as the precondition for ultimacy, you have to now fallaciously assert an infinite regression as the precondition for ultimacy, which is a contradiction in terms, because a set of particulars can't be ultimate. It has to be secured by a singular ultimacy. So to break this down even more, finite shapes bumping into each other has to be secured by a singular mind, because free will is not contingent on parts. And then you made claims against me. So you're on the hot seat here. Don't try to bring in other people's opinions into this.
We're both on the hot seat. The point is that these are both of our views. Hopefully we have educated opinions on these subjects. I think that I try and push forward science. If it's not from my own field, then I try to reach out to the other experts in other fields. That is my epistemological toolkit.
I'm not on the hot seat here, unless you're referencing God.
No,
that's a different topic.
Because I don't believe a God exists, so I think that you are just talking to yourself. And so, yes, you have a burden of proof. In fact, that is one of the things I dislike about presuppositionalism, is that they don't believe they have a burden of proof. They think that God just exists, and therefore they just need to get other people to admit it, when that is not the truth. I have been convinced that a God does not exist.
You're making a lot of claims again, because I know God exists. So whenever you bring in other people into this...
But why should I care that you think that you know that a God exists? Why should I?
That's a loaded question, because, again, I know God exists. Not a matter of if, as the if statement presupposes categoricalism, which,
but
again...
You saying you know that a God does exist does not impress me. It doesn't make me feel or think that a God exists anymore. That does not up my confidence level that a God exists.
I've already verbally justified this with the word non-finiteness, with the attributes of God, as only free will can be ultimate. You fallaciously objected to free will being the necessary precondition for...
Do I think that free will doesn't exist? I think your God violates free will when he wants. If God knows that they're going to grow up to be bad, can they kill them?
Hang on, there's a lot of claims and a question. What's your question?
If God knows that someone is going to grow up to be evil, can they wipe them out?
I'll just type out your question as I address your claims first. So you're still fallaciously objecting to free will. I've already gone through the contrary of an
Trying to
infinite
prove to you
regression.
why God doesn't care about free will either.
There's a lot of claims here. So again, if you fallaciously reject free will, then you have to fallaciously assert an infinite regression. I've
I'm
already
fine with infinite
disproven.
regressions. I don't think that God answers infinite regressions. And I think that all we can do is go as far back as the Big Bang. We have no other information. And to assert that a God-made universe is to once again go into that anthropomorphic, it's just a being that makes you, he literally exists just for us. It's a plot device. But can you at least answer why, can God wipe out people's free will, or can he wipe out people that are going to become bad when they grow older?
I just typed out your question.
Type it out. All right, I'll type it out. Listen to him, I guess, while he's talking.
There's two questions and a new claim of the Big Bang. So I'll address your question. So I'll repeat it to you in the audience. If God knows if someone is going to grow up to be evil, can he destroy them of some sort? Again, that question's an informal fallacy because you're referencing God even though you're arguing against him. So you have to agree to you have to agree verbally to my pre-biblical premise 1 before shifting to my premise 2. You put forward the Big Bang. Again, something finite can't be standalone. So a singularity would be a finite particular contingent on a mindful ultimacy. If you fallaciously assert panentheism of a
that
physical...
kind of goes against what a singularity would be.
If it's not a singularity, then it's ultimacy. And only an immaterial mind can be ultimate because physicalities...
I don't think an ultimate mind can even exist. I think you need to provide evidence for that.
I've already have non-finiteness.
Can you point out another mind besides this God that doesn't have a physical brain?
What's your question? As there's a lot of questions here now.
Is there? Well, yeah, I still want to go back to the free will thing because I don't think your God. I think it's me and your God in your brain that doesn't believe in free will and in the Bible versus you who believes in free will. But yeah, can you at least answer that? I can't get off that. Does God? And here's the question. I typed it out. Can God kill people who are going to grow up to be bad?
I've already addressed that question. It's an informal fallacy because you are referencing God's attributes within that question, even though you are fallaciously arguing against him. So I've disproven the Big Bang. I haven't heard a counter response from you regarding that.
He can't kill people who are going to grow up bad, or he won't?
Your question is an informal fallacy as you are shifting from my pre-biblical premise 1 to my premise 2 in regards to God and his actions.
So is it a yes or a no?
Your question is an informal fallacy as you have to verbally agree for confirmation God exists.
Please just say yes or no.
Your question is an informal fallacy as you have to verbally say God exists before we move on to my premise 2.
This is about premise 2. This is about free will. I just wanted to show you why your God doesn't care about free will. I don't think you're going to answer the question. All right.
We're not arguing about...
Thank you, James. Yeah, okay. let's go on to, I think we'll go on to my syllogisms, unless you want to ask another question.
I was going to respond to your claims. So again, for re-emphasis, I have disproven a secular Big Bang. You have yet to fallaciously provide a counter argument.
You have not offered a counter to the Big Bang. You would need to publish papers in a physics journal. And it is fallacious that the not only creationists, but the presuppositionalists think that they have counters to a number of physical answers when they have not offered solutions in thousands of years. Thousands of years.
That's a claim because, again, something finite.
What's the latest thing that religion has given us?
And there's another question to possibly run from your claim of the Big Bang. What has religion given us?
Mm-hmm.
So again, to go back, I'm addressing your red herring ploy of the Big Bang. So something infinitely small would be finite, contingent on an external entity of being ultimate C, complementing the polarity of God or not God. If you assert panentheism of a physical and immaterial God defaultly, that's a contradiction in terms. I'll just debunk panentheism just in case you bring it up. So a God before temporalities with a physical and immaterial attribute would be contradictory because God's mind has to reside within one singular attribute, as physicalities implies an infinite regression. So the universe can't be eternal, physicalities can't be ageless. They had to have been created. And then the other point here, can God wipe out free will? Again, that question's an informal fallacy, as you have to agree that God exists first before we talk about God's actions. The next point here, which...
No, you don't. That is... I'm either going to say lying or wrong. I hope you're just wrong, because you don't need to agree that God is real or not real to go into the claims of the Bible, because we actually have the text. It'd be like arguing over, any other canon. It would be arguing over like Star Trek or Star Wars. We're just going over what the God actually did. He wiped out a bunch of people's free will with Noah. He knew that they were going to be bad growing up. That's the excuse we get. And yet he just killed them. So either God is a murderer or he doesn't care about free will. And he just kind of gives it to us to, as this illusion. Either way, yeah. Do you have any comment on that?
Yes, there's a lot of fallacious claims here again. So you have Gishgalit. I'm addressing your Gishgalit. So again, I've already addressed this multiple times. God is concrete. You keep asserting that God is just in our minds.
Yep.
That you can't justify it because by definition, God is the ultimate fact. He is outside of us and a part of some of us. You asked the question, what has religion given us?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be in regards to my premise 2. So that's an informal question. The next point here...
Wait. What did religion give us? I was all excited.
Your question is an informal fallacy, as you have to agree to my pre-biblical premise 1 before
It's not.
talking about my...
That's called a scam. Like, you have to accept my premise so that we can debate about what my God is. That is a scam. Like, if you're not going to defend the God of the Bible, the God you actually believe, then you're just trying to create arguments that you think sound smart for other people.
That's a claim. So if you want to debate which religion or what has religion given us, you have to agree to my pre-biblical premise 1.
My claim is that the God of the Bible only exists in the Bible or your head. I find them evil when I read it, but that doesn't mean that the God of the Bible exists. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Hang on, there's a question. What's your question?
As in, do you understand that just because there's a story, a text, a God called Yahweh, we can argue about whether Yahweh was good or evil. That doesn't mean they're real. Do you understand that?
That's a loaded question. So there's still a lot of points here I have to address. You made another fallacious claim in regards to how you don't have to agree to my pre-biblical premise 1 before debating my premise 2.
Yep.
In fact, you do, because ontology preconditions epistemology, hence onto-epistemology. So we have to know what is concretely true.
Existence first our tool set. But I don't believe ontologically your God exists.
You referenced God within that statement, though.
So if I say that Voldemort is evil, does that mean Voldemort is real?
Voldemort.
He's the villain in Harry Potter. He's the guy without a nose. Team Slytherin.
You're referencing characters, books, movies, games.
I think it's a 1-to-1. Harry Potter is a fiction. The Bible is a fiction. 1-to-1. I know they didn't completely think it was a fiction back then. The Jews actually kind of do. But the Christians think it's completely serious now. So, you know.
A lot of fallaciousness for such claims here. So again,
if we took a shot for every time you said fallacious, we'd have to break someone into the ER ward. But continue, and maybe another minute or two, but then I want to get to my arguments, and then we'll probably have to move into the Q&A soon. That's about to be an hour, but I want to get my arguments in there too, because I've been having fun. But what were you about to say, Ultimated?
That we have to be revealed who God is before debating which God exists epistemologically, hence onto-epistemology. So God is an ultimate fact definitionally, and I've already justified this way back. No, I've already justified this way back with non-finiteness within my pre-biblical premise 1. So to do that again, only a mind with free will can be ultimate, because
I definitely do not agree with that claim that you are making. And so it cannot be a premise, because you would have to prove it. You'd have to create a syllogism for me to actually come on board with that claim.
It's within non-finiteness.
You really want him
and
to
you're
do that?
just repeating.
Sure, but non-finiteness and a mind have nothing to do with each other. So, like being infinite, like when we have a singularity, when you have a black hole, it goes to infinite. When we're talking about gravity, has nothing to do with a mind. And so you just asserting that it has to be this mind that undoes the infinite regression is a claim. You just assert it, and you assert it just saying we have to accept it so we can move forward. But I don't. I think you're wrong. I think that a God, I would say I know a God. Not only do I believe Ultimated, I know that Yahweh doesn't exist. The Christian God, the Jewish, Christian, Muslim God doesn't exist. God never had a son. It's actually a silly concept. But I'll let you have one more statement on it because I don't think we're going to go past premise 1 or 2. And then I want to talk to you just about 1 or 2 of my arguments, maybe 3 if we can get through it, and then maybe have
It'll be a
some
miracle
questions.
to get through 1.
That's probably true, James. But let's see. A last statement Ultimated on just this section, and then we'll keep on going. But
Yeah, so to address your fallacious claim again, there's a lot of fallaciousness / claims here, but to address one
Full
of them,
fallacious.
I've already disproven an infinite regression. You have yet to provide a fallacious counter argument. You gish gallop, and then you just reassert an infinite regression. That's my time.
all right, we would, the tennis ball would keep on going back and forth. I'm just going to send you my first
Balls.
of what could be 3. I mean, very specifically, I want you to defend your God. I mean, that is the bait of the switch here. I'll even send it into chat. But it is premise 1, everything that exists has a cause. Premise 2, God exists. C, everything that exists has a cause. God exists, therefore God has a cause. I mean, you should agree with this, right? Because you think God exists.
I'll just read the conclusion to myself.
Okay.
That's fallacious, as God is not subject to an infinite regression for the aforementioned reasons.
Which ones? The conclusions fallacious?
Yes, as I'm assuming you're fallaciously putting forward that God is subject to an infinite regression.
Doesn't talk about regression. Which premise everything that exists has a cause, and God exists. Which one of those 2 premises do you disagree with?
Well, premise 1, if you're inferring everything, including God, then...
So there we go. That's all I wanted, is that so we can agree everything that exists doesn't have to have a cause.
God is causeless.
That's all I'm asking. Everything that exists doesn't have to have a cause, right? There we go.
That's a loaded question. God is causeless.
Why? How's that loaded? You're agreeing with me.
I'm not agreeing with your premise 1. Everything which would reference God.
Does God exist?
Yes.
Okay. Does everything that exists have a cause?
No.
Okay, so there are things that exist that don't have a cause.
God is that causeless.
I feel like you know, and
Only
there's like
God.
a traffic light going on here. Like we want to cross, but...
Special pleading.
All right.
Your syllogism is not validly sound.
How isn't it?
Because premise 1, the first word of your premise 1, everything, which would reference God, however, God is causeless.
But God is causeless, and he's part of everything. Therefore, everything doesn't have to have a cause, right? God is causeless. God is a thing. He doesn't have a cause. Therefore, there can be causeless things.
Yes, hence...
There we go. All right, moving forward. All right, we're just going to go down. We got to number 2. So this is like contingency. Isn't that fun? Just send this out in there. So, premise 1, human imagination creates most of the gods on earth. Most. Premise 2, imagination is contingent on the human mind. Conclusion, human imaginations create most of the gods on earth. Imagination is contingent on the human mind. Therefore, most gods on earth are contingent on the human mind. We're getting a little bit more complex.
Your syllogism is fallacious because of the first word of your premise 1, human. For you to identify a human, you have to reference God as he is mindful ultimacy. Again, a finite thing can't be standalone. It has to be in causal relations to mindful ultimacy.
Thor?
That can be a loaded question. So
Is it though?
I don't know what for, like some finite made up god.
Like exactly. Yes. Who made that god up? Or was
Big
he not
hammer,
made up? Maybe he's
really
real.
big.
Yeah. I don't want to lead you down that.
If you that's a loaded question because that's just a finite, that's a creature. There can only be one god.
Well, if there can be only one god, then who were most of the other gods made up by?
That's a loaded question because
why is it a loaded question?
Because God can't be a plural. He has to be singular.
So who made Thor up? How about Ra, the sun god?
These fake gods, I don't know.
Yeah, who made up you call them fake, whatever you want. Who made them up?
Who made up Ar and Ra?
God is the creator of all temporalities. So all these fake gods would fall under the category of being finite.
So you agree with my premise and the conclusion, right? Do I have to go through it again? I feel now I'm sounding like you. Human imagination, creates most of the gods on earth. Imagination contingent on the human mind. Human imaginations create most of the gods on earth. Imagination contingent on the human mind. Therefore, most gods on earth are contingent on the human mind.
No, because the word human is synonymous with non-finiteness.
The word human. Can I just say imagination creates most of the gods on earth? You like that better?
There's, again, what's your question again?
Oh, it's two premises and a conclusion. I'll do the conclusion. I'll cut off human. Imaginations create most of the gods on earth. Imagination is contingent on the human mind. How about just mind? Contingent on the mind. Therefore, most gods on earth are contingent on the human mind.
That's a fallacious claim because God is ageless. He didn't causelessly spawn out of nothing.
Who created the other gods?
That's a loaded question because...
How's it a loaded question?
Because gods infers finite beings, as there can only be one capital G God.
I know, we hold the sword up like this. There can only be one. But, like, who do you think made up the Muslim God?
Your question is loaded, as there can only be one God.
You are avoiding, like, if this were a gymnastics competition, that you would win gold in. I will. Like, do you think all the other gods come from your God? They all kind of have it right. You just are more right?
Your question requires clarification. So
I assume that you think that you have the right God, and every other God is made up, is made in the imagination. Do I have that wrong?
Your question is an informal fallacy, as you have to verbally agree to God existing before debating which God.
So it could be that the other gods are not contingent on the human mind. They're actually real. Or contingent on something else. Who knows? The Hindu gods.
There's a lot of informal... Your response is an informal fallacy, as you have to agree
What's the
God exists
fallacy?
first. An informal fallacy.
I know which one.
It's a red herring, I would say.
It's not. It's the argument. I am literally presenting you an argument, and I'm asking you if you disagree or agree with the argument.
Yes, and the topic of this is Judeo-Christianity. So you have to agree a God exists first before we debate which one. Yes, you do. Onto epistemology.
Just because you say so. And no, my epistemological toolkit is science. That's why I named this presuppositional versus empirical, because your toolkit, your epistemology is presupposing that the Bible is true. My epistemological toolkit is science. I use a process that accepts everybody, no matter what belief system, as long as you're actually testing things and posting your methodology. It doesn't care who you are.
Science presupposes onto-ethical, epistemology. So for us to...
Don't do it, Amy.
I know.
Identify... You just have to accept the formation of this debate. For us to debate which God exists, you have to agree a God exists.
I disagree. I think that we can judge your God without believing that they are real.
That's a fallacious claim, because God definitionally is real, as he is an ultimate fact.
But you understand that by saying definitionally God is real doesn't make God real, right? That's like trying to wish something into existence.
That's a loaded question, because God is pure ultimate C, entailing absoluteness, eternalness, and omnipotence.
Well, how about the gods that don't
will.
have those qualities? Are they just wrong? Did they come like do you think that the pantheon, the Greek or Norse, these pantheons, were they created by humans, or were they just inspired by God but kind of just got it wrong? It's like close, but...
To me, your question is an informal fallacy, as again, you have to agree a God exists before debating which one or a set of gods.
I think that is just not answering the question. All right, I'm going to post my last one, and then I'll let you, maybe we'll do like a finisher statement before we head into like Q&A. But it's been fun. I would up be for, like I said, doing this again, or maybe what I think it has to be is Ultimated versus James. That may be.
Do we want to do that as another stream, or do we just want to wrap that up today?
Oh, well, it'd be another stream, because we're doing up... yeah, but I'm posting my third one, and this is because normally I get people who say, of course, the other religions, the other gods are not real, but you're not going to go forward with that. And so I'm just going to, the whole entire point of my arguments is just to get you to defend your actual beliefs. They're a gotcha just so you can defend yourself. Also, what is up to Freak Nathius, Mark Reid, Robert, everybody that's hanging out with us, Lorena, sending so much love. We're about to move into the Q&A, so tag myself, Amy Newman, or James W. in chat.
Some interesting questions and comments too, some of those.
Exactly, and of course, super chats. I saw one or two. Those will get you sent to the front of the line, as always. Thank you all for supporting the channel. But let's just go to my last one, because this is supposed to get you just to defend your very specific religion, which is premise one. It's logical to assume most gods on earth are contingent on the human mind. I was building off the other because I assume that you think the 99 other % of gods are made up and just in people's minds, but not yours. Yours is the real one. Premise 2, we have no good evidence for the Abrahamic God existing over any other God. I assume you would not accept premise 2. That's the entire point, but that's okay. Conclusion, most gods on earth are contingent on the human mind, and we have no good evidence for the Abrahamic God existing over any other. Therefore, it is logical to assume the Abrahamic God is contingent on the human mind, which leads me to the question that I just burning desire of my heart. Do you have any good evidence for the Abrahamic God?
Yes, and I will address this, assuming we are concluding this.
Sure, or at
debate.
least you can answer this, and then maybe we'll both have like the final things. But this will be like our final argument. This is my, everything has to come in threes, so this is my third argument. Do you have any thoughts about it?
Yes, I've addressed this with premise 2. So premise 1 adduces biblicalism, Genesis 1:1 to Revelation 22:21. So to further justify this, God by definition is ultimate truthful love. Thus, he would make known the creation of the universe within the first sentence of his sacred book, the Bible, so we can thank the correct God for physicalities.
Ultimate truthful love.
Yep.
But see, now at least we're getting closer. Like you said, the Bible and all this, you think the Bible's true? That almost gets us to talking about that. Like I'm almost tempted to just dig into that, like why you think the Bible's true. I know we only have a minute or so left, but that's the entire point of these arguments, is I don't think that presups often want to dig into their beliefs, but just to put it on the nose, why do you think the Bible's true?
Your question is loaded because I know the Bible to be true for the aforementioned reasons.
Why do you know the Bible's true?
For the aforementioned reasons.
Just everything you've been saying, that's the...
What I said maybe a minute ago.
I guess I'm just not convinced. But
she just so you're aware, you may have heard that she's been diagnosed with ADD, so sometimes she loses track of things. It has been put out there before, so just try and work with her, Ultimated.
But it's been a fun back and forth. I, would love for you to, really get into the meat of why you think Jesus is your Lord and Savior. But
that's a claim because I know Jesus is my Lord and Savior.
Oh.
Well, that's a loaded question then.
Once again, I know that Jesus is dead. In the ground, either has been burned in his ashes or buried. But for 2,000 years, that mofo has been dead. Not to insult the dead. I think we should respect the dead. But at a certain point, you gotta move on. I feel like a few thousand years is enough time. Anyway, I think we're going to switch into... I said I would... I guess we'll go in reverse. I'll switch it back over to you two. As we're switching into the Q&A, YouTuber Ultimated, I do have your link in the description below if anyone would like to find you out and see more of what you got going on. But would you like to give it a shout out and then just say your final words on the topic?
I would say just go over to Ultimated's channel, let them know what you think, but you can't do that actually because everything is disabled.
Comments are locked?
Yeah, they're all disabled, so you'll have to do that here.
But you can post a comment here, baby. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, hit up that Patreon, and of course send your questions in to me at Amy Newman and James W. And with that, Ultimated, if you'd like to have a minute or two just to tell people what you got going on and your final thoughts on the subject. And then I'll do the same. We'll move into Q&A.
Yes, I'll be brief. My pre-biblical premise one, I've won by default because everybody has faith in God to different extents. My premise two can be left up for interpretation because not everybody has the same reading comprehensibility or lexicons. So don't fret if somebody you know doesn't believe in the God of the Bible, as God judges people based off the greatest commandments that we know before reading the Bible, and that is to love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and to love your neighbor as yourself. So that's my concluding statement. Thanks.
Thank you, Ultimate. Do you have anything to add, Amy? Oh, Amy may have stepped out for a second. That's fine. We'll just let her finish up what she's doing. But thanks, everybody, for coming and watching this debate, for participating, asking some questions, getting some good comments. I've got a few of them to read out that I'll be presenting our debaters with. Amy, Philip Ultimated has finished. Would you like to...
I just want to thank Ultimated for coming on and having this debate. I want to have more Debate Me Brahs and get more different types, whether you're a creationist or a presup, an agnostic, an atheist, whatever. But in conclusion, when it comes to presuppositional versus empirical, I think the results speak for themselves. The past few thousand, definitely the past few hundred years, science is what has given us everything that makes our society modern. It is what makes technology move forward and us to be able to use that technology to find new discoveries. Religion not only doesn't do that, but oftentimes splits us up into different denominations and groups. If you are looking something even more as a wedge than politics, you will find no better place than theology. And so let us use and utilize the scientific method as it allows anyone, no matter your age, gender, or religion, to do a test after making an educated guess, going out into the field, doing research, publishing those results, and actually having a peer review community not just try to agree with you, but try to prove you wrong. Einstein tried desperately to prove that quantum mechanics was not the case. He could not understand how it would tie together with his up-and-coming general relativity. And yet it is. And so with that, I want to thank Ultimated. I want to thank James W., everyone in chat. Like I said, I see DeFreak, Reid, and Norfolk, and Robert, and Lokifer, and everyone, Lorene, and Nathius. You are Victoria, Sinister Porpoise, Binge Thinker, Simos Funk, Peebo. Keep on saying hi, Stephanie, and we'll say hi. But with that, I think we're going to head into the Q&A for some finishing fun. And all right.
Do we have any other graphic to play or anything, or can we just get started into the questions?
Well, we'll just go like this. Woo! That's right. Welcome to Debate Me Brah's Q&A, presuppositional versus empirical. We have the YouTuber Ultimated Judeo-Christian, myself, Amy Newman, and James W. moderating. What's up to all the people in chat? we're going to start with some lovely super chats and sending love to all of you who send them in and help support the show. A $2 big super chat starting with Sinister Porpoise. When you think of porpoises, think of the Sinister Porpoise. Infinity is a concept,
shark,
not a number. That's right. I have comments on it, but what do you think, Ultimated? Infinity is a concept, not a number.
That's a fallacious claim because infinity would represent the number 1 concretely, not conceptually, not just conceptually.
But the entire point of an infinity is that you never get there. And it goes on to use the word infinitely.
You can never count to infinity.
Like that's the
That would be
entire
infinite. Infinite would be the adjective to infinity. So something can expand infinitely. So
But
a circle can...
I think that our universe could expand infinitely. But our universe is not a god. It doesn't have a mind.
Contingent. If it's expanding into something. God is that something.
God is that.
But that's
something.
not the biblical position because God created in a different dimension.
Do you believe in the Big Bang? You're gonna say that's a red
that's a
herring,
loaded.
you know.
That's a
I
loaded.
knew it because you want to debate about our physics concepts, but you don't want to accept them. Da, 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 da. Sending so much love, Sinister Porpoise. Though coming in hot, another $2 super chat from the Sinister Porpoise. So long, and thanks for all the fish. This debate needed a warning. Jägermeister needed. Whew, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. We're sending love to everyone out there and saluting whatever anyone is drinking out there.
She also did say that she wished she had some wine or Jaeger in the side chat there. So
listen, if you got a little wine, you got a little Jägermeister, if you're doing shots, whatever it is.
Bill already said last time he doesn't drink. Fun. I'm sure everybody's...
Is that true, Ultimated? You don't drink?
Alcohol, no.
It's the one thing you and Muslims, you're like, got this.
Religious reasons, health reasons. Yeah.
All right. Well, sending so much love. Thank you, Sinister, for the double super chats and all the love. And we're sending that love right back to you. A big $2 super chat from the Freak. Shout out to James W.
Freak,
love that guy.
They're always
underrated.
Freak coming in our chat.
That's right. Sending
Thanks
love
so
to
much,
the Freak. We often see him in chat. He even comes on sometimes. I see him also in other channels. He's like, there's a bunch of people in our Skeptic and Ranting community.
Into political channels sometimes, not even related to this. Yeah. He's very active out there.
I know Pine Creek now has a Pine Creek Politics. Sending so much love for all love and support to you, DeFreak, and to James W. Woo.
Thanks, DeFreak.
Speaking of which, that love for James W. has just begun because a big $10 super chat from Doorknob Head.
Oh yeah.
Great moderation, James W.
Thanks, Doorknob Head. It was a lot. It was a lot of work, but it's all part of being a host of the channel. So yeah.
And we just thank you for all the love and support. Like I said, guys and girls, this is what keeps the lights on. This is what helps us expand the show and create more great content. And we're sending love. We only have
the batteries in the vibrator. as they say.
Exactly. But thank you so much, Doorknob Head, Da Freak, Sinister Porpoise, all of you. We have one more super chat and then
I have a few
questions to ask.
I have a
and
few that
then
I noted down. So
fantastic. But we only have a few more. Even saying all that. And so if you would like to get your question in, now is the time to do so, whether it's a super chat or a chat. We do want to respect Ultimate's time, however, for coming on. And
he's got another like 8 hours, so he's good.
I still have to take that. Exactly. James. What I love is just the pitch up to that, because I love you, Ultimate. It just, you made it seem, you were like, I don't know. I may have to leave
Limited time here.
Limited amount of time. But, good 9 hours. 8 hours is a shift. That's overtime, actually. We enjoy the overtime. That's what this channel is here for, James.
Listen, when it comes to
Putting in the hours.
loving and worshiping God, I mean, ultimately, he puts them shifts in. So
gotta get on your knees. Keeping this a PG debate, probably, most likely. Anyway,
yeah, we did.
Speaking of which, thank you so much, Doorknob Head, and a $2 super chat from Lorena Drosophila. Can I get a Friday? Woo-hoo!
Did just turn Friday here.
And also, there's been a number of super chats, and I can't do it with, these non-Wi-Fi, but I can.
All right, people, you guys love to see our dance. There you go.
Yeah, it's Friday.
All right. They love to see a dance, so you gotta give them a little.
And James, I love to dance. I'm actually not that great at dancing. I'm much better at singing. However, I like dancing, because why not, James? Sometimes
give us
you just gotta...
a Maya he Maya ha.
Maya ha.
There you go.
But thank you so very much, Lorena. And that's right. Thank Bob. It is Friday. Thank you, Bob. But with that, those are super chats. Keep sending them in for all the love and support. But I think we are going to move forward to a few regular chats.
I got from Robert X here. He says, his argument, I'm right, I won't give you proof, just trust me, sounds like a scammer. Ultimated, do you sell used cars as a side job?
No, and I'm speaking the truth here. My syllogism is true, definitionally.
Okay.
And I'm just sending love to Robert, and
great guy, Robert.
If you see anyone on the side of the street and they just they have a viper in their hand and they're just like, oh no, this is gonna be great. It's gonna make your skin clear up, no acne. But anyway, sending love to everybody in chat.
We got You Are Victoria says, he mentioned not God, therefore he accepts not God. He is arguing against atheism, therefore he agrees in atheism. What do you think, Ultimated?
Not God would be non-finiteness. So that's a dichotomy / polarity / closed system.
I'll let you have the
Really
last.
hard to understand.
Oh no, anyone after you.
Very complicated.
A finite thing, I've said this many times, a finite thing with length, for example, can't stand alone. It has to be in causal relations to ultimacy.
Something 8 inches standing, it can't stand alone. It has to be causally related.
Yes, something with length can't be standalone.
Width and height, 3 dimensions. Okay.
It's all about that /. Anyway, sending love to all the people in chat. Thank you so much. You are Victoria. And no, I guess I'm still in your court right now.
Beamsy says, this is due to something cannot be finite and infinite at the same time. Beamsy asked, the point before the Big Bang is the point of no distance but infinite energy. How can you claim it to be finite when it's referred to as infinite?
That's a loaded question because something infinite can infer finiteness as it's an adjective. So something can be infinitely small, however, contingent on God as he is mindful ultimacy.
So you're saying some of my ex-boyfriends are contingent on God. Oh, I'm just teasing.
So before the Big Bang, infinitely small,
Tipulates.
infinitely dense, infinitely energetic, infinite energy, but still contingent upon God.
In that fallacious worldview, that would be panentheism of a God with both an immaterial and a physical aspect, which leads to a contradiction in God's ability to have mindfulness, because physicalities infers a set of things, infinite regression.
Okay.
Okay.
The Sinist report says Athena wants everybody to know that cats are gods, and Ultimated needs to start worshiping the nearest cat.
That's true.
That's a contradictory statement.
What's the contradiction?
A cat can't be ultimate. See?
Oh, come on. How do you know?
Because God, by definition, is not an animal.
How do you know that it's not an ultimate cat god?
Because from my understanding, God's name is not cat. So that's a game of semantics.
So if the Bible did say... If the Bible did say God had whiskers, though, you'd be all on board.
If the Bible states so, I would say so.
Finally ultimated. I feel like we're fine. Oh, James, I think, got taken by Satan just for a moment. But at least we have come to a short agreement. I know I have a few questions. James was holding a bunch. I will ask this one though. From Beamsy. Can you ask him this? The point before the Big Bang is a point of no distance but infinite energy. How can you claim it to be finite when it is referred to as infinite?
That's a loaded question because something physical can't be ageless to begin with, as it's subject to an infinite regression of causal affairs, entailing an absolute mind that secures finite shapes bumping into each other. That's just how it is.
Worship Gizmo.
Just how it is. But James, I just read one of Beamsy's questions, but there may be any more.
Here.
But before James reads it, I will say this is your last chance, ladies and gentlemen. If you have a question, tag at Amy Newman or at James W. or send in the super chats. But we are about to wrap up on presuppositional versus empirical. But back to
God
you, James.
equals the square root of -1 commented that he calls what's in his underwear God. Well, I assume that would be a temporality or finite in size.
There's
Once
a lot
again,
of background
I have.
noise.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say
is
in my
that-
bedroom I have something infinite in size as well. But you can continue.
No, that's yeah, James said something and there was background noise. So if you can repeat.
Oh, God equals the square root of -1 says he calls what's in his underwear God.
If you know
That
what I
sounds
mean.
contradictory.
Does it?
Well, if there's humor in that, then yeah,
What?
it's still
Probably.
contradictory.
What's the contradiction?
God is ultimate C, not that in someone's.
How do you know it's
Pants.
not ultimacy in someone's pants?
Because that person would have to be God, but
if God wanted to, could they be either a cat or in someone's pants? Either of those two things. They're just fishing.
yes, God can do that.
So technically, God could be, infinitely rising.
In God
But
equals
down
the square
there.
root of -1's pants.
If he wanted to, because he's
Yeah.
omnipowerful, right?
He is everywhere at all times.
Everywhere, can do
Infinite
anything.
size.
There's no contradiction, right?
There can be, because God resides primarily in a different dimension. So you can have
Primarily.
distinct, infinite in size particulars. For example, outside the edge of this universe would be darkness, which would be infinite in size in this dimension.
What
But if
dimension
they
is he
wanted
residing
to.
normally? Do you know? Is it like the 5th, 6th? Do you
Say
know?
that again.
Which dimension does God normally reside in? Do you know which one it is? Like the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, or is it infinite dimensions? Where is he?
The first, the dimension of, he would just be his own dimension before creation.
So it's not like the 1st, 2nd, 3rd. It's just like a separate category / G dimension.
No, he would be a monocotomous dimension before creating
My last
dichotomous
Scrabble word.
dimension. Yep.
Okay. Nathius says, how do you prove that the ultimate loving truth thing is the God of the Bible, not of another religion?
Because of the first sentence of the Bible, as even before reading the Bible, we know in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. So God would make sure that is made directly known within the Bible.
The book
So
did
we
say
can
a thing.
thank. And the entailment is that Genesis 1:1 onwards to Revelations 22:21 is correct.
But do you think
Without
that
the addition of the Quran.
do you think that the other religions out there, they don't make claims about the beginning of the universe, that their gods had a role in that? Only the Christian God makes that claim, you say?
That's a loaded question because it's the truth God created and it's referenced within the first sentence. It has to be the first sentence to comport with God's truthful, loving nature.
He loves
Onto
us so much.
epistemology.
Are there any not loaded questions?
I can't remember.
Or is that a loaded question?
That's a loaded
That's a loaded question? James,
They're all loaded.
We can't escape it.
Let's see. Simos Funk says, does God come like a horse, specifically referencing to Ezekiel 23:20? I don't know if you have that pulled up, or you can probably
also referencing my browser history, but both of those things.
Ezekiel, what was the
23:20? 23:20.
I'll just look it up. Christian Standard Bible, and lusted after the lovers. I'll just read this to myself.
You can also read to the audience if you want.
I mean, we might not want to get demonetized. So get the stream demonetized.
It is fine. And lusted after their lovers, whose sexual members were like those of donkeys, and whose emission was like that of stallions. God can ejaculate in any amount.
Does he usually have?
James, you know you wanted the money shot. You didn't.
Does he usually have? Does it usually that like as much as a stallion, or it depends on the circumstances?
I don't know how much a horse ejaculates, so I can't properly answer that question.
Oh, I mean, I'd say talk to Ken Hovind about that. You are familiar with him? Are you familiar with Dr.
Yes.
Ken Hovind?
But it is why we do the debates like this, to get to these types of heavy-hitting questions. Yes.
Mark Reid says, red herring, you just name random fallacies. And Doorknob Head ticked on to that red herring, it looked more like a pink herring to him. So what do you think, ultimated red herrings? What about it?
Well, I reference an informal fallacy, so Mark is possibly conflating a fallacy to an informal fallacy, and I properly...
Is it a big fallacy?
A pink fallacy?
No, a big. Is it a big fallacy?
No, an informal
Because some fallacies
fallacy.
are small, some are big. We don't like to judge fallacies because it's really how you use it. But like, if we were just asking, exactly. But if someone was asking for a friend,
I properly utilized my statement of the informal fallacy that Amy deployed of red herrings. And it's all on recording. So,
wait, James. Is this live? Are we live?
Let me check on that for you.
This.
See if I can get an answer on that for you. Let's see.
Sir, this conversation is being recorded.
Okay.
Damn it. But yes, a super chat coming in, sending so much love from I'm sorry, Wilson. $2. Hold me, Amy. Hold me. And it does. It means I do have to get my Wilson now.
I don't know if you've met Wilson before, Ultimated, but he is a part of the show here. I don't think Ultimated's met Wilson before, but meet Wilson.
James, I like to think that we're people pleasers on this channel. Really. This has been my friend. We've been stuck on an island. Yeah, funny enough, a little bit more empirical evidence than your God. I kid, Ultimated. But you know,
that's a red herring.
It is helpful, however. Like, you know, the whole touching, seeing. Like, I understand there are things we can't touch and see, gravity, air. We have other methodologies of detecting them. But yes, but it does help. The whole, you know, go like this and everything. Oh my. But thank you so very much.
I don't have any. Did you read Beamsy's question about the point of distance before the Big Bang?
I think I did. I read Yeah, what would you ask him? Well, I asked about infinite energy. No, not about
There
the
you
Big
go.
Bang. Though you might have asked that. Oh wait,
I
maybe
think
it was.
I think we
No,
already
it was.
asked
It did have Big Bang. Yes, it did. All right. Well, then, moving forward, we're coming
Do you have any more thing
to
else?
the end. If not, then this may be the swan song. But it's been a fun debate,
I beg your pardon, sir?
sir.
Bounce him, Amy. Bounce Wilson.
I almost tried to. The problem is there's not a lot to bounce you off of. Like, you can go like that, but I feel like that is not very pleasant for people's ears. So I'm sending love to everyone out there.
Well, I haven't seen Buttercup. I haven't seen Penelope or Moonlight all night in there, Amy. What happened?
That's true. They're probably hanging out. Penelope sometimes falls asleep with the femboy. So they're probably on top of them, and then Buttercup is probably taken in Rachel's game room, her office. There's a seat, just like there's double seats here, and the cat generally steals the seat. They love these seats, just like the humans love the seats. They're like, it fits
Moonlight
me so
loves
well.
them.
Oh, exactly. Oh, yeah, that's where Moonlight generally, he likes to fall asleep in chairs. That's like his shtick. But yes,
I think we already asked Ultimated if he has pets, and he said no.
No pets.
No pets, Ultimated?
No.
With
Is there anything
that,
else you want to say, Ultimated?
I will say, yeah, I'll give you another minute, Ultimated, and then I think we are going to wrap up. If you have any final thoughts with the Q&A in mind.
Yes, well, this will be to James W. Will we be debating on this topic?
We could set something up. Yeah, absolutely. We could do it. We'll do it just like this format, but me and you and Amy can kind of help us out. Moderate. Yeah.
Okay, well, you can contact me through Discord.
I will. We'll get that. So we'll do that. Try to do that soon, while our audience is still mindful of it. They've got you and your topics, your syllogisms on their mind, so we'll try and do that. Get that soon. Oh, here he is. Say hi to. Is that Moonlight? That is Moonlight. Say hi to Moonlight. Do you at least like cats, Ultimated?
Yeah, cats. Yeah, they're fine. Yeah, that's my conclusion.
But not ultimate and infinite. Not the foundation for everything that exists, reason, logic.
At least he likes cats. At least he doesn't.
That's true. I'll take it. People. But all right, ladies and gents, I'm sending love to all of our Patreons, all of our channel members, all of our subscribers, or just if you're a viewer that checked us out. We'll be doing more debates on Debate Me Brah about a whole bunch of other content. I almost have the server. I'm about to buy it for the Minecraft and all that. It's going to be like I'm debating whether it should be like a 10-person or a 20-person or whatever. But, yeah.
Server on what? What platform?
So in Minecraft, you can locally play together yourself. But if you want to have like an online server where you want to have other people play, and for the most part, I want to almost log me making the civilization thing, because I think that's the most interesting of ever. Because most of it of Minecraft is just you doing whatever the fug. But this actually has a little bit of a purpose to where I can record it, make episodes, and invite any creationists, presuppositionalists, people who don't think the world is round or old, or whoever, to also join, and I'll just make clips out of those.
Are you familiar with Minecraft Ultimated?
Yeah, I haven't played it, or yeah.
But you know what it is.
Yeah, it's very popular, apparently.
Maybe we'll convince you and James to play. It looks completely like a kid's site. Well, I get why it's probably it's easy to access, so I guess that's why kids probably play it. But just like a simple programming language, it has complexity because it has all the stuff in it. because of its simplicity, it also has all this crap in it that makes it very complex. But maybe I could show that off with those videos.
Maybe.
And all right, with that, I want to thank all our super chatters, the channel members, Patreon supporters, everybody, just the chatters, the viewers, Nesquik. Well, really Gatorade, probably Gatorade. Being recorded. And I want to thank our moderator, James W., for
Thank you.
coming out and moderating, though you can feel the gears running. But if you're feeling super fancy, follow on twitch.tv/ABNewmanSkeptic or subscribe by hitting that button below and hitting that all button icon to see our premieres or join our live streams. If you're a Patreon, which is about to be revamped, relaunched with all sorts of new fun stuff. But if you want to get if you want to get a podcast produced, here you go, right down there, Fiverr. And I can produce your podcast, help you get to monetization or build your audience. There is no easy way. It's building a community. You can't really just buy. Send so much love to the person in chat. I'll say this every time. There's only two types of anti-LGBTQ people. That is religious folks and the people in the closet. It's the only two. So you're going to have to figure out which one. But we're going to do more episodes, unfortunately.
About that. They can't be both.
Or both. You can be both.
They can't be both.
But we've never found someone that wasn't religious or in the closet that was anti-LGBTQ.
Maybe one day we will, but we haven't.
Maybe one day. And I get but I think that is going to conclude. Oh, the Patreon. You can support us by getting our evolving badge system by hitting that join down below and becoming part of the Skeptic and Ranting, the girl deck community. And we list you down in the channel membership below in the description, along with our Discord if you want to check out our Discord. But the best way. Exactly, right? We got cookies. But the best way to support us is by heading over to patreon.com/Amy Newman and becoming a supporter and unlocking some unique benefits with that. This is James W. We had fun with Ultimated, and I am Amy Newman.
Good night, guys.
And I hope that you all have a fantastic episode on the next Skeptic Ball Z. Good night, everyone. Say goodbye, and we'll see you on the way out. Mwah.
Bye. Thanks again.
Thanks, Ultimated.